According to the scholars of Mohammedan Islam, interest is prohibited. How is it possible to conduct trade in any manner without interest? Is it possible that Muhammad, who was a trader on behalf of his wife Khadija, would forbid common interest?
Usury is from the Latin usura, interest, was defined originally as charging a fee for the use of money. This usually meant interest on loans, although charging a fee for changing money, as at a bureau de change, is included in the original meaning. In modern terminology, it is the action or practice of lending money at unreasonably high rates of interest. It is very important that the listener should be made aware of the following traditions regarding Muhammad and trade. According to the biography of Muhammad, as accepted universally by his followers, he was taken as a youth on trading trips by his uncle Abu Talib, who had become the guardian of the orphan Muhammad. Ibn Ishaq, page 81. The following is the tradition regarding Khadija and Muhammad. Khadija, who was Muhammad's first wife, was a businesswoman. She needed the services of an honest individual to manage her trade. At that time, Muhammad, who was 22 years of age, was recommended as a suitable choice for the job by several notable people of Mecca. Due to his success in various commercial-related ventures, Khadija prospered in her business. From the above, one must logically assume that Muhammad had to deal with very important trading transactions, both before and after his marriage to Khadija, that required the use of interest on money either lent or borrowed. It is a historical fact that such commercial agreements and transactions were taking place thousands of years before Muhammad. Hence, he must have understood very well that no business could be conducted without the use of the medium of interest, excepting in the cases of barter dealings. He also may have encountered cases when exorbitant interest rates were either demanded or applied. In any case, based upon Muhammad's background as a merchant, it is inconceivable that he would have prohibited the ordinary use of interest by his followers. In the Quran, interest is called riba, which is copied from the Hebrew ribit and is vehemently condemned. Unfortunately for his followers, Muhammad died before having had the details of the matter explained. Muhammadan scholars, the ulama, worked out an impressive body of literature on usury to circumvent it theologically. Al-Baqarah 2.275. Those who devour usury, يأكلون الربوة, will not stand except as stands one whom the evil one by his touch has driven to madness. That is because, they say, trade is like usury, but Allah has permitted trade and forbidden usury. Since Allah permitted trade, and trade cannot function without interest, then logic dictates that in Muhammad's mind, usury meant actually exorbitant rates of interest. Al-Baqarah 2.276. Allah will deprive usury riba of all blessing. Al-Imran 3.130. O ye who believe, devour not usury, riba, doubled and multiplied. أضعف مضاعفة. But fear Allah that you may prosper. In fact, that in the verse above the terms doubled and multiplied is used with such vehemence could have only applied to exorbitant interest rates. Al-Nisa 4.161. That they, the Jews, took usury, al-riba, though they were forbidden, and that they devoured men's substance wrongfully. If usury in the verse above means common interest, then Muhammad's Quran falsely, ignorantly, and of course erroneously accuses the Jews of breaking their own law regarding interest. Moreover, there is no concept of usury in the Torah, since lending with interest is considered a bilateral agreement between two parties, invariably between a Jew and a non-Jew. Interest, contrary to the Quranic verse above, was not forbidden at all, especially between an Israelite and a stranger. Deuteronomy 23:20. You shall not lend upon interest to your brother. Interest of money, interest of foodstuff, interest of anything that is lent upon interest. That the Lord your God may bless you in all that you set your hand to, in the land where you are entering to possess. It should be understandable that since a non-Jew would only lend a Jew with interest, then the reciprocal should also be valid. But if usury in the Quranic verse above meant exorbitant interest, then the verse makes perfect sense, since under this circumstance it is prohibited. It beggars belief that Muhammad, who was after all a trader under his wife Khadija, would prohibit common interest, especially concerning his own Quraysh trading tribe. There is absolutely no doubt that Rabba could only have meant exorbitant interest. It was his ignorant, unlearned, and generally illiterate followers, because they lacked his guidance, extended it in a very illogical and impractical manner to cover all financial transactions. That is why the Muhammadans need a huge and convoluted strategy to take interest without calling it so. Thus, trying to defy the logic that a rose by any other name is still a rose. Although interest is prohibited under Sharia law for the allegedly noble reason that all earning should be as the result of one's own sweat and effort, nonetheless, and based upon their own historical records, Muhammad and his followers found much simpler ways of enriching themselves by dispossessing, enslaving, conquering and plundering others of their produce and wealth. In modern times, the Muhammadans have created an elaborate methodology to circumvent this prohibition and disguise it in Islamic cloak of terms and financial arrangement, but with exactly the same results, which is to either pay or receive interest, but under other guises. What the Muhammadan records prove is that when it was applied to those who were not his followers, the unbelievers, such as the Jews and Christians to start with, he demanded and extorted in many cases up to 50% of their produce without any physical or financial input from him or his followers. The Zoroastrian Persians later suffered the same fate. This, of course, was not and is not considered by the Muhammadans as an unfair or unjust deal. There is absolutely no doubt, based on all the evidence and background of Muhammad, that his followers got it all wrong because he did not live long enough to explain what he meant, and in their ignorance came to the wrong and stupid conclusions. Al-Tirmidhi Hadith 2826, narrated by Abu Huraira. Allah's Messenger said, usury has 70 parts, the least important being that a man should marry his mother. The term usury, used in the above context, has no commercial connotations whatsoever. In fact, it is used as a means of expressing an obscene degree of immorality, that a son should marry his mother. Since no commercial transaction is involved, then usury in this instance can only confirm that its meaning applies only to exceptional cases pertaining to totally immoral and or unjust circumstances such as exorbitant interest rates. Al-Tirmidhi Hadith 2830, narrated by Umar ibn al-Khattab. The last verse to be sent down was that on usury, but Allah's Messenger was taken without having expounded it to us. So leave aside usury and whatever is doubtful. Al-Khattab's comment, so leave aside usury and whatever is doubtful, is one among the most astute regarding the subject of usury. He is implying that, since Muhammad had no detailed its meaning, Muhammadan scholars should not make a huge and uninformed issue of it. Sunan Abu Dawood Hadith 4858, narrated by Sa'id bin Zayd. The Prophet said, the most prevalent kind of usury is going to lengths in talking unjustly against a Muslim honor. Once more is the terms usury used without any relationship to commercial interest. Once again, it is addressing the issue of excess. Hence, based upon the Muhammadan records themselves, regarding Muhammad's trading endeavors on behalf of his wife, the commercial needs of his Quraysh tribe, and the use of the word to mean excess, not related to business, shows that the ignorant followers of Muhammad got it all wrong and put themselves in a totally unnecessary straitjacket.